And you shouldn't care about body count if you want a relationship. So those are the 3 prompts.
Got it. So let's start with my first. So I have multiple arguments. I brought about six arguments to whether or not feminism is good for society, taking the affirmative claim that it is not. The first is that feminism erodes the family, and that was always its stated goal. So from the position of original feminist thought leaders all the way into modern feminist thought leaders, the idea of eroding what the family is has been a primary goal of every single individual wave of feminism, starting with the first wave on. My second argument for why it's bad for society is that feminism has switched women from duty to materialism. You see that in the holding of debt by women. This was all accumulated in about 100 years since the 19th Amendment was put into place, and since feminism became a mainstay, it has switched from the duty-based, duty to family, over to pure materialism and what feels good, which is horrible for society. 3, that feminism has not increased female happiness at all. You can find this. There's a now famous study called The Paradox of Declining Female Happiness. It's a good one. It's by Justin Wolfens. It was followed up later on a study by David Blanchflower. And in The Paradox of Female Happiness, it states that as the material conditions for women opened up due to the fact that we had a more egalitarian society, they have become far more miserable than ever, and male happiness outpaces theirs significantly in almost every single department. And this is over all socioeconomic divisions. This is over all people groups in all places where this has been studied. Feminism has not done anything to increase female happiness, that's for sure. 4, feminism leads to male resentment and the use of force doctrine. We can touch on that. It's not an argument that I'm going to focus on, but it is one that I'm sure that we will touch on. My 5th argument against modern feminism is that the language of indoctrination is psychology, which I argue is not only a soft science, and I would even say pseudoscientific, but a linguistic indoctrination program, and I can demonstrate that pretty easily. My 6th argument against feminism is force doctrine. The idea is that my opponent, like most feminists, is likely a moral relativist. Though they never claim that they're moral relativists, they always end up being moral relativists when you dive into it. And if that is the case, there's really no argument which can be made from the moral side why men don't just use force to enslave all women, which they can do. And there's really not much that women can do about that, except we just don't. We just haven't done that. But in most parts of the world where that is done, there's very little that women can do. So essentially, feminists are always appealing to men and men's force in order to protect their rights. The very same patriarchy that they're against is the very same patriarchy they necessarily have to appeal to in order to have rights in the first place, and so the patriarchy will always be in place. I think that this is a logically consistent view, and the feminist view that the patriarchy needs to be eroded, even though women cannot force their own rights, absent men, is inconsistent and illogical. So those are my 6 baseline arguments against feminism, and we can stop it with that and move over.
All right, Anne, if you'd like you to respond with your opening statement.
Yeah, well, I'll make a few points, I guess, if we're just starting with feminism right now. Feminism promotes individual freedoms, which I think at a baseline is what the government's job is to do. And so if you're looking at feminism from a legal or a political standpoint, it's quite literally the government's job to ensure that, the type of feminism that I advocate for, which we can kind of get into later, is, implemented into policy. Now, the second thing that, you touched on, and I'll kind of give a little bit of a response to just quickly, is about the waves of feminism. I probably think that you find modern feminism to be the most problematic. However, modern feminist lens are more of what we would call a critical feminism. That's what I would probably subscribe myself to, where the goal of feminism is to look critically at the types of structures that exist in society still, whether they are legal, if they're not legal, whether that be social or within family structures, et cetera, in our institutions and our daily lives, It's to look at the things and the ways that we interact with other people, and what types of things, should be deconstructed, and what types of things are still being used to oppress women, even in a subversive way. Now, you often talk about this whole notion of egalitarianism, and we can get into what you mean by egalitarianism, but I suspect that you probably mean something like equality of outcomes and not equality of opportunity. I would probably advocate more for something like equality of opportunity versus outcomes. I don't think that men and women will ever be exactly the same, and I don't think that that's the goal of most feminists. In fact, I think that might be a straw man of what most feminists are trying to do. So what I would say is that when we look at people in the workforce, the goal isn't to have the same amount of female doctors as male doctors. The goal isn't to have the same amount of stay-at-home moms as stay-at-home dads. The goal is to give people the opportunity to do those things if they want to, because we agree that, personal freedoms, once again, are good for society, and they are, good when they're able to be pursued. It's not necessarily that people have to pursue those things. It's just that they have the ability to. And so that's what I would say so far, and then we can get into more of like the terminology stuff.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can define some terms a little bit here. I mean, there's
for the semantics,
like feminism, patriarchy.
Well, I had a few of the semantics I wanted to clear up because I'm not sure exactly what you mean by them, and I can tell you what I mean by them too, if you'd like.
Sure.
So let's start with feminism. Right? My definition of feminism is the movement towards an egalitarian society, deconstructing the patriarchy.
What do you mean by egalitarian?
Just basic equality between men and women.
But that's why I made the distinction earlier. So equality of outcome or equality of opportunity? Because my goal would be equality of opportunity.
I even think opportunity would be fine. I would just grant it.
Okay, sure, yeah. So then if
the deconstruction aspect is the patriarchy.
I don't think that that's a necessary part. I think that when most feminists are talking about, like, fuck the patriarchy. Sorry, I don't know if I can say that.
Yeah,
word.
You can say that.
Okay. Smash the patriarchy, screw the patriarchy, whatever. I don't think they're meaning literally, men can't have power. Men can't have 51% of power or something like that. Do you think feminists are saying that?
Yeah. Are women, if feminism is saying that women are collectively oppressed, who are they oppressed by?
Well, yeah, most feminists would say that men are.
So that would be the
oppressors.
patriarchy, right?
Okay, but so you're saying not just men having power. Maybe we should define patriarchy then.
From the father, rule of the father, men in the position of power, yes.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I don't think women are trying to, especially feminists, are trying to abolish men out of power positions.
Can men be oppressors if they don't have power?
No, of course not. But they're not trying to rid the power. They're trying to get rid of the oppression.
So, okay, so you don't think then that power necessarily is oppressive?
No, not necessarily.
Okay, power not oppressive. So
right, like if you would ask a typical feminist, like, would it be oppressive if we had if Kamala would have gotten elected? Would that be like an oppressive matriarchal system or something? They would say no. So it's not just the power.
So then feminism to you is to try to get men to use power oppressively.
Feminism's trying to get men to use power oppressively?
No, to not use power oppressively.
Yeah, I believe that feminism is about the norms about how we should act. You don't think that feminism's just a descriptor of like the world, right?
Yeah, I think it's just a descriptor.
Do you?
Well, in the context of us doing the semantics, I'm just talking about the descriptor.
Right, but
you're asking within the descriptor, can you make ought claims? Sure, you can do that with anything, I guess.
Right, but feminism is like a philosophy about the way the world should be. Right,
yeah.
like, yeah, it's a set of,
Yeah, but right now we're just talking about the descriptor itself.
I don't know what you mean by feminism as a descriptor then.
Well, so right now we're just untangling semantics, right? So I just want to know what you mean by the thing. If you're saying that feminists can make ought claims, sure.
Right, but feminism itself is a set of ought claims. Feminism isn't just men exist and they have power. No feminist.
Well, feminism to you is this.
Right,
okay. Yeah. So feminism to you is, so I'm just trying to get a definition because it's somewhat proprietary still. I just want to make sure feminism to you means that a group of women are oppressed, the oppressor are men. Right. The men in a position of power, their power is fine. It's just them being oppressive towards women with their power is not fine.
So the way that I look at feminism, like I said, is the push towards equal opportunity for both sexes in a society. That doesn't necessarily mean that those sexes will take advantage of those opportunities, but that those opportunities are available.
Okay, so feminism to you just means equal opportunity.
Sure.
Push to equal opportunity in society.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
Because that itself is a normative claim. That's not a descriptive claim. That's a descriptive claim about what feminism is, but feminism itself is a set of normative claims.
Yeah, that's fine. If you
Okay.
if you consider it to be a normative ethical worldview, that's fine with me. I'm just trying to make sure I know what it is when you say it. And then what is harm?
What is harm? There's a few different accounts of harm that I kind of would find sufficient for different instances. So there can be harms of deprivation, like I can deprive you of something, that's harmful. I can give you examples of things that would be harmful, or accounts of harmful. There's things like counterfactual accounts of harms where, imagine in another world you would have been better off had something not happened to you. That would be harm in that instance. There's all sorts of types of harm.
Well, okay, I guess I should just ask this basic question first.